welcome back to Crimes and Closets. This is Christy in my closet in St. Louis.
Hey, this is Beth in my closet in North Carolina.
What's up, Beth? How you doing?
Snow and ice.
Oh, don't even talk to me about snow and ice. I don't even want to talk about it. I can't. Mm-mm.
It's actually been funny how we in my area have had none.
Yeah, and we have had a crap ton.
I know everyone in the Eastern Hemisphere except us.
I know. Essentially, it's like what 70% of the U.S. is covered in snow right now.
Wild. That's really?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, that could have been a meme that somebody totally made up and it's not actually accurate. So, call me out on it if it is, but I would not be surprised because Texas is full of snow right now.
Oh yeah, it's like Tennessee and Alabama, Louisiana, like all those southern states. Here we are, just like right in the middle, literally, of everybody. And yesterday it was like 61.
Yeah, me too.
And sunny, and we went outside without jackets.
Oh man.
I know.
Okay, this is pretty sad because today, so I went out and shoveled the other day because it was crazy snowing here and I was frozen.
Literally, she sent me a picture and her hair had ice in it. That is not an exaggeration.
And it's not because I went out with a wet head. Like my hair just froze.
Like she did what Mama said. She dried her hair.
And today I went out because I didn't shovel after that yesterday because more dumped on the ground and I didn't shovel. And so then today I was like, let me go out and just clear the driveway because I was looking at everybody else's with the sun that shined today melt away because they had shoveled later than me. And I still had like a ton of snow. So anyway, so I shovel and I was out there and I was sweating today as I was.
Oh.
And it was only 13 degrees.
Oh, no.
So that's how sad it is. I was sweating in 13 degrees.
No, absolutely freaking not. No, ma'am. No.
Yeah.
I don't want none of that. You keep it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it counted as my workout, I would say. So, I mean, I'm not, slaying dragons like Beth, but I am shoveling.
I do slay dragons. I do slay them. I didn't slay them today, but I slay dragons for a living now. I have the Ring Fit for Nintendo Switch, which is my kids' video game, by the way. And I bought this intending for them to have a, kids workout exercise game. And it is so fun. And I'm good at it. I kill those dragons. I slay them every day. I've been doing this for my workout.
Oh, I know, because we'll be texting and all of a sudden she's like, I gotta go slay dragons. BRB. Gotta go slay some dragons.
And then I come back and I'm like, I did it. I slayed it.
Slayed. And
they're hard.
Matching workout outfit and shoes.
Yeah, you buy different outfits. Come on. You buy different outfits and it gives you power, and it gives you more power if your outfits match. So it's speaking my language and everything. So my shoes match my jacket and I had to save up all my coins. And I love it. It took me 3 times, even with my new shoes, to slay the dragon yesterday. 3 times. And all my kids were sitting on the couch and they were like, come on, Mom, only one more. You only have to do one more. You got it, Mom. Oh, he took your heart. Drago took your heart. It's fine. It's so fun. It's a family affair.
Oh my gosh.
Fit. Come sponsor me.
We're now sponsored by.
There's your product of the month. This Nintendo Switch Ring Fit.
Oh, that's right. We haven't done one of those in a while.
It's like $60 on Amazon. You message me. I'll send you the link.
It's actually funny you're saying the Ring Fit. And that's a funny I mean, it's not a funny name because I know that there's like a ring that you're actually holding, but it makes me think of like the Ring doorbell.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it's
Right.
crossing over some
Oh, yeah,
lines for me.
true. I know they should have
But
thought of that. Should have marketed
anyway,
it differently, but it's
whatever.
fine. It is a ring. It's an actual ring
Mhm.
that you hold.
Well,
Look it up.
I think it's
I'm so
fantastic
sorry.
and
It is.
totally look forward to the moment in which she texts, I gotta go slay some dragons, or I just finished slaying dragons.
Or I just sent a little dragon emoji
Yeah.
and a little fire
Yeah, it's
because I
fantastic.
just rocked some
Fantastic.
dragon's world in my tie-dye shoes. Hate me.
Well, I'm super glad that you're just slaying dragons and not like real people. So
Oh,
that's
true.
so there aren't any dragon slaying in my story today though. So I'm sorry to say. I wish there were. I wish there was a way to tie this in. But fortunately there's not. So are you ready to
Ready
hear it?
for it? Yes, I'm
I,
super excited about this week's episode from you.
I hope I follow through with a good story because I
Teased it.
enjoyed. I'm sorry, what?
You've teased it.
I have teased it to you, and so I'm hoping that I didn't tease it too much because I did enjoy researching this one, and it's an interesting one. So we it's a pretty sad story though, all the way around. There's some infidelity, mental illness, lack of self-esteem, and some innocent victims all rolled into one sad story. And this is the story of Mark and Jennair Gerardot. Gerardot. I love that name, Jennair, by the way.
Jennair.
It's, yeah, Jennair.
Oh, that is
Very,
pretty.
very different and pretty. She was also very pretty. Can't wait to share the pictures with you. But anyways, so both their stories begin in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is like the northeast corner of Indiana. It's pretty far up there. And Mark was born in 1968 into a strict Catholic family, and he had 10 siblings, which is not surprising when you've got a pretty Catholic family that to have
Oh,
a lot of
yeah.
siblings.
That's
He had a
old
pretty
school
normal.
Catholic.
It is old school Catholic. I had friends growing up that had like, I don't know, I feel like it was like 12 of them. And then there was another family down the street that also had 10 or 12 or something. So anyway,
Ooh.
it is very old school. But he had a pretty normal childhood, nothing really to note about it. And he went on to college and obtained a bachelor's degree in design from the University of St. Francis, which I believe is in Illinois. Jennair was also born in a Catholic household in 1970 and had just one sister. And she had a bit of a rough upbringing. Apparently, her father was an alcoholic, and her mother and her did not get along very well. She kind of thought they were hypocrites um, in their beliefs and what they actually lived. So she just
Hmm.
didn't get along, and she um, just always spoke her mind. So she wasn't one to hold back. So it got really bad at one point, and she moved out at 17 to live with her grandparents for a year. And she was kind of like I said, a rebel, spoke her mind a lot, and she ends up moving back home after that year. But then she goes on to college and gets a bachelor's degree in communications and liberal arts from Indiana University, Purdue campus. So, pretty good. Both Jennair and Mark end up in the marketing field later in life. So they're both on the same kind of career path. They meet in 1986. Jennair is 16 and Mark is 18. I believe that there was just under 2 years, so they weren't exactly 2 years apart. They were just under 2 years between them, and he was struck by her right off the bat. He stated in a 2020 interview that she was the only person who could make those brown Taco Bell uniforms look good. Isn't that
Oh
cute?
my gosh. I remember the brown Taco Bell
Yeah.
uniforms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So
Here for
apparently
it.
Jennair just looked stunning in that. So,
Anybody that can look good in brown
yeah.
must be bombshell.
Yeah. They would see each other randomly throughout the years. So they met in 1986, but they just kind of like, it was like in passing, and then they would see each other at like basketball games at the store or whatever because they lived close by. But it would be another 4 years before they actually got together, where they would run into each other. And Jennair apparently just said to him at one point, "Well, are you going to ask me out or not?"
Aww.
Yeah. Goes on to her like just saying what's on her mind and not holding back and not caring what anybody thought. Because if he wasn't going to ask her out, she was probably like, fine, whatever. But he did. So, and that's where it all began for them. So we fast forward a few years into October 23rd, 1993, when the two of them get married. And Mark talks fondly about Jennair and their marriage. They have a pretty typical marriage. He fell in love with her right off the bat, so he was just more enamored with her. And some friends warned Mark not to marry her because she seemed a little bit controlling, kind of because of the usual stuff like, oh, he didn't hang out with his friends as much anymore, or she found some reason not to like them or whatever, which kind of happens sometimes even after you get married because like you've got all your single guy friends and maybe you're not hanging out with them as much anymore because you're married now. And
Yeah.
I know it doesn't always happen,
Well, it
but
also could be just because you grow up a little bit.
right, exactly. You grow up and you grow apart. And so it's not unusual for it to happen. So they had their ups and downs, like all marriages, but overall, they seemed like a really good team. They both had good jobs. They bought their house in 1998, their first house in Fishers, Indiana. And they talked about having kids, and it was always part of their plan, but it just never happened. There would always be some reason not to try, like, careers going well or financial reasons or health reasons or whatever. Nothing major health related, but there would just always be something, a reason not to try having kids.
There's never a good time to have kids.
Well, yes,
I'm just
exactly.
going
And
to
I
say
feel
that. If
like
you wait for the right time, you will literally die. Like
that's
waiting, because
exactly
it's
what
just never convenient.
was told to us. Like if you're going to
Oh,
wait, then you'll never find the right time to do
no.
it. So, but
They're the most inconvenient things on the planet.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, it just never happened. Maybe it wasn't in the cards for them. So in 2001, Jennair was doing so well in her career and was so successful, it gave Mark the opportunity to quit his job and start his own business. He started Gerardot and Company, which was a small branding and marketing firm. He started it out of their home and it grew into a larger company. And after a couple of years, they needed to rent office space and actually hire employees. So in 2004, Jennair ends up losing her job. And she's, like I said, she was in marketing as well. And she was doing super well. She was very sought after. But it was just that time, things were downsizing. And so she just ended up being one of the people that lost her job. So Gerardo and Company was thriving. So Mark just told her, well, why don't you just come work for us? You can just be part of the company. 6 months later, all of the employees asked to meet him outside of the office. And they just basically gave him an ultimatum saying that either Jennair had to go or they were going to go because apparently her position wasn't really clearly defined. And so she was kind of taking over in all areas, which isn't terrible if she's a really good businesswoman, but she needed to have her niche and be told this is what you need to do, because other than that she kind of treated it as I'm the boss's or the owner's wife, and so you
Well,
need
it's her
to.
family business, so you do kind of take things like that personally.
Right. Yes, exactly. So not surprising. And she is a bit of a hard ass too. So, some people just couldn't take it. She wasn't very much she was successful in marketing and helped the business, but she kind of lacked those people skills to handle and also respect the employees. One of the employees ended up quitting and one got fired, but in the end they ended up with a small, strong team to build the business. And things were going so well, and the housing market was in great shape that they decided to upgrade. So they sold their little first house and bought a larger house in 2005 with plans to fix it up and flip it. 4 short years later, though, we all know what happened.
We
In
do?
2009, the
Oh.
bubble burst
Oh,
and the
yes.
housing market went down the drain and it crumbled. And they also started to take a hit in their business as well. Their clients were dropping like flies, and some had even stopped paying them because they're struggling in their business and they really can't afford somebody to be marketing for them. And so they just weren't even getting paid. So now they're struggling with the company because they're both working for a company that's struggling. And the house that they plan to flip is now basically not an investment anymore. They're just basically going to have to live in it, which they're fine with, but it wasn't in their plan. And so, like many cases, finances started to put a strain on their marriage and they start to argue. They were working together, living together. So, I don't know what that's like to work and live with somebody. So, I feel like at times living with somebody is enough to be
Yeah.
a strain.
Right.
So I
So
can
true.
imagine if you're like, you're going to work and coming home to them. So in 2011, they have to get out of their lease for the company because they can't afford to to keep that space, the office space. And Mark started to work from home in the basement. Jennair ended up getting a contract work doing marketing projects for a local insurance company. So she kind of ventures off of the Gerardot and Company. One day in 2011, Mark gets a call from a friend, and this friend is letting him know about a job as a creative director for a small web-based firm. His job would be to build a creative team and build it into a digital agency. And this was in Greenville, South Carolina. So they didn't really have a plan to move. But at this point, with things just, happening, that everything went downhill and their marriage is getting kind of rocky because they're arguing a lot, they're like, well, maybe this is just what they need. They need some sort of change. Let's go for it. So they decide to start over basically their lives and move to Greenville. So he goes first to South Carolina and Jennair stays behind to sell their house. And not long after Jennair comes, it's only like a month or two that Jennair is up there, is in Indiana without Mark. And then she goes to South Carolina to join him. And years later, Mark will find out that Jennair was actually considering leaving him at this time. He doesn't know it, but he finds out. Just recently, he actually found that out. Um, she was thinking it was the perfect opportunity because they weren't getting along very well to end things and just to start over separately since he was moving. But
Oh.
in the end, I guess she ended up just saying, oh, know what? No, we've gone through this much. I'm going to do it. I'm going to, just move to South Carolina. So she does. Anyway, things were getting a bit better for them. And Mark even says that between the years of 2012 and 2016 were the happiest years of their marriage. Jennair ends up landing a job not long after they moved to South Carolina. She is a marketing manager for a large parts manufacturer in Greenville. And in 2013, they take a trip out to Denver. They had gone there years before on a work trip for Jennair, and they had absolutely loved it. So they just decided they wanted to go on a vacation. And while they're out there, they decided that this is where they really want to be. They love Denver. This is where we want to be. So Mark starts to search for jobs out there and is just always looking, and he's not even trying to hide it. So his employer in South Carolina knows that he doesn't intend to stay, but he's still working, he's doing what he needs to do, but he's, going on interviews every now and then, and they all know that this is happening. It's a known thing.
Wow.
So eventually in 2000, so Jennair has this job also in South Carolina, but in November of 2016, Jennair takes another blow to her ego when she was again let go from her job. And this one kind of caused a blow to their marriage because she, had been let go one other time, had trouble finding a job. Now she's got this job and then she's let go again. And she was really successful in what she was doing. And so she then tries to go out to find jobs, but she ends up being overqualified for many of the jobs she's going for because firms at this time were looking for young talent that
Oh,
they could
yeah.
mold and not pay a lot for.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. That became the
Right.
trend during that time frame too.
Yeah, and she's 47 and was super successful and, they're just like, "Yep, no, whatever," which
No,
sucks.
no six-figure paycheck here, lady.
Yeah, exactly. So she ends up getting a job as a cashier at a grocery store. So you can just imagine
No, I
like
cannot. Oh my.
what that is like for her and how she must have been battling just fighting through depression silently because, she just feels like she's worthless and, she can't get a job and
Although now, thank the Lord for our grocery store workers.
oh
Holy
gosh,
crap.
yes. No
Oh my
kidding.
goodness. The
Yes.
real
Thank
heroes.
you. Exactly. So not long after that, in early 2017, the company that Mark worked for basically decided that it was time for him to move on. Like, we know you don't really want to be here. It's now become a distraction between you and your team because you're going for interviews here and there and like you're doing your job, but everyone knows that you don't want to stay. So it makes it hard for a team to like stay cohesive when they know that somebody wants to exit at some point.
Sure.
So they basically just say like, "Hey, you've got 6 months. We'll keep you on because we like you, but you got 6 months to find another job and then we're done." So here's where things really begin to unravel for Mark and Jennair, and we will get into that part of the story after the break. Hey guys, our friends Jess and Bryce over at What Happened in the Woods just celebrated their 1 year podiversary yesterday. We're so excited for them, and we wanted to make sure you knew about them. So if you haven't already checked them out, please go do so. And stay tuned for a short promo after this. Thanks a lot.
Hey, podcast listeners. Are you obsessed with true crime? If you're like us, you can't get enough. Hi, I'm Jessica, and together with my husband Bryce, we created a little podcast by the name of What Happens in the Woods. We're just your average couple living normal lives who felt the need to share our love for true crime and sensational cases with the world. We talk about crime stories that take place in the Pacific Northwest, and we want nothing more than to share them with you. Come join us every first and third Friday of the month as we take a deep look into the dark and twisted stories of the Pacific Northwest here at What Happens in the Woods. Episodes are available for download on any listening platform or on our website, www.whathappensinthewoods.com. It isn't for the faint of heart, but we promise it'll be worth it.
Okay, so Jennair is working at a grocery store and Mark is on the job hunt. That's where we left with. In August of 2017, he sees a job for a creative director at the University of Delaware. And he had
Oh,
just
that's
spent
not in
years.
Denver.
No, it's not. So yeah, so they really wanted to live out there, but at this point he's kind of like, well, I got to find something. So he was going for interviews like all over the place. But this one just caught his eye. And the last firm that he had worked for was an agency who specialized in higher education marketing, so that's why it caught his eye. He, like I said, does interview all over, but he's really drawn to this. And so in October 2017, he has a phone interview and is then invited for a formal meeting with the whole team. And this is where Meredith Chapman enters the story.
Oh,
She
no.
is a 32-year-old who just the year before had run for the state senate in Delaware and only lost by 700 and something votes, by the way. She is married to a city councilman, Luke Chapman, and they've been married for about 9 years. She was a NCAA Division I cheerleader.
Of course she
And
was.
yes, of course she was. She was the executive marketing director of the University of Delaware and an adjunct professor there.
Whoa.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
Meredith.
pretty accomplished for a 32-year-old and beautiful, by the way. You'll see in pictures. Her family describes her as a beacon of light, loved her family fiercely. She's a compassionate friend and among the most talented and innovative professionals in her field.
I believe it.
Yeah, I believe it too, based on everything, and also based on how Mark was like drawn to her during this. During the interview, Mark is struck by how smart she is and how professional. He immediately wants to work for her because he sees great things happening on her team. Within days, he's offered the job and he spends the next few weeks preparing to move. Again, Jennair will stay behind for a little bit to get their home ready to be sold or leased, whatever needs to happen in that time. So in early November, he makes the move by himself to Newark, Delaware. On his 4th day on the job, he's invited to some big meeting at the university. And after the meeting, Meredith says, "Hey, you want to go debrief and go grab a drink somewhere?" So he's like, "Yeah, sure." So they go, but they don't really talk about work at all. They just chat and get to know each other. Mark admits to opening up a lot about his career and his marriage to Jennair and how they've had their kind of ups and downs. And, you know, we're on a slippery slope here, Mark. You don't chat about your, marriage problems to the pretty young 32-year-old boss.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack in that sentence, but I agree with it all.
Okay. Figured you would. So they get along really well, and she's pretty, she's smart, and she thinks he's just as great as he thinks she is and has an impressive resume, and she tells him a lot how great he is, and he's just feeling like he hasn't heard these things from Jennair in a long time. And so, clearly you're drawn to someone who is giving you the attention. Mark basically is working there for a few more weeks, and then it's Thanksgiving break. And Jennair had convinced him basically to stay there because they wanted to save money. She was like, it's just going to be the two of us anyways. What are we going to do? Like, why come all the way to South Carolina? Just stay up there and it's fine. So he stays during the break, and that Saturday after Thanksgiving, a coworker of theirs was moving, and so he had agreed to kind of help move, let's get to know some more people and whatever. So he goes and helps this coworker move, and Meredith also goes to help this coworker move. And following that, they head out to grab some dinner together. And at the end of the night, what do you think happens?
Brown chicken, brown cow.
Well, not quite, but they did kiss.
Oh.
But immediately Mark feels guilty and is like, nope, can't do this. Like, I'm married, she's married. Like, we shouldn't do this. Jennair's going to be moving here in mid-December. This just can't happen. So the next day, they just kind of go their separate ways, whatever. Next day, they plan to go for a jog together. And they kind of...
It's not going your separate ways. P.S.
Okay. Going their separate ways that night.
Got it. Okay. Well, kudos, but no.
Yes, kudos. So they go for a jog, and they both kind of just don't talk about it. They ignore the fact that this kiss happened. They don't chat about it until right at the end when Mark reiterates that, there's a line and we can't cross it and blah, blah, blah. And, she's kind of upset about this, like felt like maybe, I believe that I read somewhere that she was kind of like, well, gosh, I should have just kissed you again as soon as we started, met today. And maybe you wouldn't be saying this to me now. And he's in his head is kind of thinking, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so days later, Mark is scheduled to go for an interview in Denver. So he had this interview. He had gotten the job in Delaware, but, the whole Denver thing is still out there. And he had this one planned. So he was like, I'm still going to go because this was our plan. And why not? It would make Jennair happy, clearly. So I'll just still go to this interview. But while he's on the trip, all he can think about is
Meredith.
And he decides that he really does not want this job and wants to stay in Delaware. But he also doesn't really know if he wants to ruin his relationship with Jennair after 24 years of marriage. So he's really, really torn. But over the course of the next few months, Meredith and Mark clearly grow closer and basically are having a full-blown affair. I'm not sure if they are sleeping together. It's not really mentioned if they are or not. I just assumed they were, but later
I mean, that's
details.
an affair.
Well, yeah, but there's also an emotional affair, which I
True.
almost feel like is worse.
Oh,
Like
100%.
the way theirs started, having a drink, him talking to her about his marriage, blah blah blah. That is worse to me than if you had just gone out and had a one night stand. To me, like I wouldn't like him either way, but like
Right. Yeah. Let's don't sign up for
like
either one. How about? Because
no. However, I feel like that's worse. You're on an emotional level. Anyway,
yeah, and it's continued. It's an investment at that point.
yes.
I totally get that.
So at this point, I should also mention that I'm not really 100% sure about Meredith's marriage. It was mentioned at one point that she said their marriage had been like over for years and it was just a facade because they were both involved in politics and kind of needed to put that on. And that her husband actually knew she was spending time with Mark, but I don't really have a whole lot to confirm that. So I'm not entirely sure, but that's kind of the assumption at this point. So within weeks, Jennair had moved to their apartment in Delaware, and she notices changes in Mark's behavior and attitude and asks him about it randomly, and he, denies anything is happening. So she had been suspicious pretty early on when Mark said that they were having their first drink and would make comments like, just don't fall in love with her, and
Oh.
yeah. And he would constantly insist that it was a professional relationship, not to worry, yada, yada, yada. But Jennair would just not let up on the questioning. And so finally, she moved mid-December. On New Year's Eve, Mark finally breaks down and just says, okay, I think we need to take a break from our marriage and take a step back and I need to figure things out.
Why don't these men tell you these things when you've not moved from 5 states away?
Yeah.
Like, could you not have called me 3 weeks ago and had this conversation seriously?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, yeah. Yeah, you would think, but of course he was torn at the time, so I guess I don't know. I mean, I think that was pretty early on and he didn't really know that he wanted to, like I said, ruin his 24-year marriage, but you've already ruined it. So, like, whatever.
He just waited till it was the most inconvenient. Cool.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. You wanted to be face to face with her, So, anyway. So they start to go to counseling because again, he's still on the fence.
Wow.
And because he's spent so many years with Jennair and this other woman, is she really worth blowing up his marriage? So as he's preparing to go to their third session of counseling, he's putting on a jacket and he notices a small bulge in like the lapel. He cuts it open and finds a listening device that was sewn into it. Yes. So Jennair admits that she had put it in there and that she wouldn't have to do it if he would just be honest with her.
She sewed it in his jacket, a wire?
She sewed in it was kind of almost like a USB like type thing. So it was kind of thin in his lapel. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they go through weeks of trying to figure things out and going to counseling, but Mark finally decides that he will file divorce in May of 2018 after they fulfill the Delaware state's requirement of being residents. You have to be 6 months residents to file for divorce, apparently, in Delaware. So once they get to that mark, that's at the point at which he's going to file to divorce. And over the course of the next few months, there's up and down moments between them. And basically, Jennair asks that they both remain in the apartment together, that they go for walks as often as they can, have dinners together, and just spend as much time together as they can before the official split.
Oh, my goodness. She's trying.
Yeah. And she is just beside herself that this is happening. She, felt betrayed and whatnot. Mark agrees to it, figuring he at least owes her that much after their long relationship. And I mentioned the up and down moments just a minute ago, but these moments, the down moments, would come as Jennair would confront him randomly about things that he had talked to Meredith about. And she would say, like, because he'd be like, wait, how do you even know that I was talking about that today? Or whenever he had that discussion and she'd bring it up, she'd say that she'd hired a private investigator and that she has ears all over town. Like, it could be the cashier at the hardware store that overheard you, or, whoever at the coffee shop that heard you.
Okay.
Yeah.
If my
So
husband was having an affair, 100%, this would be my game plan. Like, even if I didn't have ears everywhere, I would literally make him the most paranoid person on the planet. That would be my plan.
it's effective. I'm not gonna lie, it's effective. Jennair ends up contacting Luke, Meredith's husband, and tells him of the affair, which in turn causes issues for Meredith, clearly, and they end up filing for divorce as well. Jennair also sends a letter to the University of Delaware to make them aware of their affair.
Oh,
And
gosh.
their boss ends up separating them, so they kind of splits up the team that they're working on, because they're all on the marketing team. So like they split them so that he's now not reporting to Meredith. He's reporting to the one above Meredith, and they had to separate what they were doing. So anyways, it causes a big ruckus. And then HR ends up getting involved and start an investigation. And they're basically worried about losing their jobs, because I don't think, based on the university rules, that you are supposed to have a relationship with other faculty. But anyway, I think that's kind of a generic rule in most universities. But anyway, at this point, Meredith goes for a job at Villanova. She decides, all right, I'm going to go. I'll just get another job somewhere, and then we don't have to worry about all this nonsense. And that would move her to Pennsylvania. So Mark and her talk about their plans, and that he's going to move to Pennsylvania as well at some point, but not until the dust settles, and after they can officially file for divorce, because he has to stay a resident of Delaware for a little longer. So Mark's just complying with Jennair's request to spend as much time together as they can. And so they're still living together. They're going on hikes. They're going out to dinner. He's just doing what he can to get to May, when he can file for divorce. And Jennair will bring up the affair randomly, and when they're spending time together. So she has some good days and bad. Some days she feels like she's being thrown out like trash and being replaced with a younger model. And who can honestly blame her? I mean, it's kind of is what happened. And on April 21st, 2018, Meredith moves to Pennsylvania, and Mark helps her move. He stays there all day, helping her unpack, whatnot, and they just end up having dinner, and he stays a little later than he expected to, and sends a text to Jennair and is like, I'm not going to be home until whatever time. And she's like, don't worry, I'm not home anyway. So the next day he has...
Oh, Lord, she followed him there. Oh, my gosh.
The next day, they had a plan to spend the entire day together. So they went hiking and they went to lunch. And she randomly brings up the idea that Mark and Meredith slept together the night before. And he just kind of ignores her. He's like, you know what? This is kind of like par for the course here. She just randomly throws these little jabs at me, and I'm not going to play into it. I'm just going to ignore it. And they end up spending more time together that day and make plans to have dinner the next day. Well, yes, because that was April 22nd. On April 23rd, Mark is waiting for Jennair at the restaurant they had chosen. She texts him, I'm going to be late. I made a wrong turn. He's like, fine, no problem. I already ordered some wine. I'll order some for you. Whatever, no big deal. After a bit, they exchange a few more texts about their dog. Apparently, there was some sort of misunderstanding, somebody was supposed to go and let the dog out, but when that person got there, she couldn't find the dog, so she was in a panic, where did you let the dog out and not remember to let him in? Anyway, it was a ridiculous string back and forth. And then she's like, forget it, I'm too upset about this, I'm not coming, I'm just gonna go home, I don't want to deal with this anymore. So he's like, fine, well, I already ordered dinner, so I'm just gonna sit here and eat my dinner, and then I'll be home. She's like, okay, whatever. So a little bit later, he gets a text, and it's a picture of a pile of trash, and in the middle of this pile is a used condom. And all she says is, you bleeped her, in the text. You can fill in the word for bleeped, right?
And brought the condom home from Delaware?
Well, no.
Okay.
So They exchange a few more texts, and Mark realizes that she is at Meredith's apartment going through Meredith's trash can. And so he's like, okay, or not her apartment, her house. So he's like, all right, I got to pay the bill and I got to leave. Now,
You got to call Meredith.
Right. Well, he does. And so Delaware, where they are in Delaware and where she is in Pennsylvania, it's about 40 minutes probably away. So like not a hard drive to like, get to, clearly. So he immediately starts paying the bill and leaves, and he gets these texts consecutively from Jennair. You ruined my life. I hope you never find happiness. Goodbye, Mark. So she stops answering him at that point, and Meredith is not answering him, his calls or his texts. And so he's basically like, I'm going to Meredith's. And when he enters Meredith's house, he finds Meredith face down on the ground, and feet from her in a pool of blood is Jennair. She had shot and killed Meredith and then turned the gun on herself and pulled the trigger.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Such, ugh. Mark has since found all of the things that he missed over the course of their marriage, and especially over the last few months of their marriage, that was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I see these things happening? Like, she needed help. She did go to counseling and was like telling a counselor all the things that she was doing to like investigate Mark. And this counselor was telling her, like, you need to stop. It's not healthy for you, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he found receipts for surveillance. I have such a hard time saying that word. You can't say Massachusetts. I can't say surveillance. Surveillance equipment. GPS trackers for both of their cars.
Oh my goodness. She's putting them on her car too? On Meredith's car too?
And found all of the data that she downloaded it from. And so his car was labeled like Mark the Liar, and her car was labeled like M Whore.
Oh. Okay.
She had 12 notebooks full of transcriptions from all of the listening devices that she had on him, which, by the way, she would sew into his clothes, whether it was the lapel or the pocket or whatever, the lining of his pants. She would take them out, download, and then sew them back in. I mean, she was committed to this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And it had all started back in January. So she had only moved mid-December. She was she was on his trail immediately. And it started with a background check she did on Meredith at the end of January. And from there, she just went downhill. She bought a gun on March 20th.
I was just going to ask where she got the gun.
Yeah. She was anti-gun before this, like 100%. And she bought the gun on March 20th. Same day. Like, I guess all you have to do is prove residency or something in Delaware, and you can just walk out of the store with a gun.
Oh, goodness. Really?
She went, yeah, because he then went at some point and asked and tried to get it. And he was like, all you need is, yeah, you can walk out. I can get you this gun if you have ID or whatever it is. Like, I do a quick background. They do a quick background check, like right then and there, but as long as like nothing shows up, it's not like a background check and then
she wouldn't have had anything in her background anyway.
Right, exactly. She was clear. She's never done anything in her life. So she went for lessons to use that gun on the 27th, target practice on the 29th, and on April 20th, and also was at target practice the day of the murder, just hours before. She was seen outside Meredith's house by the neighbors. Now, Meredith's only living there 2 days. So in those 2 days, the neighbors had seen her, but she was wearing a wig, big sunglasses, and a trench coat. I mean, she was deep undercover.
I'm not mean to laugh, but like,
I know. It's just
how is this not
totally
a
like
movie?
Cliche. Exactly. It was totally cliche. Like, she's walking around with wigs and big glasses and a trench coat. Like, nobody's gonna think that that's unusual.
Right.
Anyway, she quite literally went crazy with all that she was finding out through all of this. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, he has written a book, and there is way more detail in this book that you can find out and stuff. And it's so very interesting how much she delved into their relationship in that short amount of time and just was like, this is not, I mean, she decided, I think right away, like, not, if I can't have him, nobody's gonna have him, and I don't want to live. I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
So anyway, he's now living in San Diego. He moved away from there about a year after it all happened. He was a suspect, like immediately he's a suspect in this thing, but they, pretty quickly, once they find all this stuff in their apartment and search the apartment and all her stuff, like they figure it out. But he only stayed there about a year and then moved to San Diego and again wrote this book. And I will say it's called Irreparable. Irreparable. Is that how you would say that? It's not irreparable.
I think so.
Irreparable. And all the profits are actually, he's not profiting off of this. He didn't want to profit off of this. He wanted the story to be out there. He said that if people are judging him either way on this story, and he's like, if people want to judge me, that's great, but at least judge me on the facts. And here's all the facts. And so the profits actually all go to this Adopt a Golden place in Atlanta because it's where they got their dogs when they were married. They had a heart for golden retrievers, and so all the profits are going to this golden retriever.
Oh my! I did not see that coming.
No,
and
that's why
I see the Golden Retriever Foundation coming.
Yeah. I didn't mention their dogs, which I mean, it's a huge part of their life, but
it kind of makes me not as mad at him.
Well, that's what I said to earlier before we even started. I didn't tell you a whole lot, but I was like, I'm not really mad at him. I'm not mad at her. They made mistakes in their marriage. He made a huge mistake in his marriage.
Yeah, don't cheat. Just don't do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And with this whole it's never a good time to have a baby. It's never a good time to get divorced. Okay, it's inconvenient. We get it. But he totally strung her along.
Yeah.
Was taking her out on dates, taking her on hikes. I don't love that.
Right. Well, and clearly, she's mentally unstable and, all of this.
Which he didn't know, but.
Exactly. And that's another thing, pay attention to signs, because I'm sure that there were signs throughout the marriage. I mean, the friends a long time ago said, you shouldn't marry this woman. She's controlling. And apparently, again, something else I found on the book, she hadn't talked to his family in 10 years because there was some stupid falling out, and so she would kind of just isolate herself with Mark. She didn't need anything else but him the entire marriage. And which, you do need outside stuff. You can't just rely on that one person.
Yeah, you can't. That's not healthy for sure.
Yeah. So there was things, she was clearly had some mental stuff going on that he didn't pick up. She's hurt. Yes, she killed somebody. And so this was Meredith innocent. I mean, I don't know. She hung out with a married
Meredith
man,
wasn't innocent, but I always do think that it is interesting how women, and it is a little bit different now, I think, culturally, but we really do blame the other person instead of blaming the person who actually hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
I think just in general, we always want to blame the outside party, which they're not innocent.
Right.
I understand you can be mad at them, but they're not your target. You know what I mean? You can't ever work it out with the third party.
Right.
You're never going to get anything from that. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got for you. That was a long one, actually.
I was literally the entire time you were telling that story, what is going to happen? Because it was so much lead up, and then it was and then she shot her, and then she was dead. The whole time I was what is going to happen, and then who's gonna die? It's in this story.
Their backstory was the entire story. I mean, it just all of it led up to that 1 second, essentially. I mean, 5 seconds, whatever it was. I mean, because who knows? I don't know. Did she confront her first? Who knows what she did? Or did she just walk in?
It
did say she laid in wait.
Oh my God. What is this? I love it. All of them do. All of them
Yep,
do.
they all do.
Well, that was a
Yeah.
great story.
Yeah, thanks. You didn't heard it?
Never.
Yeah, see, don't you feel like that's a big one to
I
not
think
hear?
it should be a movie. I think it should be a movie that they should do right after they do the Candy movie. Then they
true.
need to do this one because those are crazy stories.
Yeah, for
A
real.
woman scorned, I tell you. That was a good one.
Mhm.
I liked it. If you guys liked it, come tell us. Come see pictures on social media of these beautiful people
Mhm.
that are no longer with us. Don't cheat on your wives or your husbands.
Yeah, let's not just limit it to the men.
Just divorce. You know what I mean? Don't cheat on your partners, period, because you might die. It's true. I mean,
Somebody gonna die.
morbidly true, and we're here for that. So anyway, come find us on all the things: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, our website. Send us an email. Case suggestions, always welcome. Bring them in. We're kind of setting up our 2021 lineup. So if you want to get in on the action, please do that. It's really fun to follow us on social media. We're still doing Black History Month. So, right? Yep.
Yeah.
So catch us on that. That's been really fun. I've really enjoyed going back and listening to some of our older episodes that we've done. So we would love for you guys to come and hear these stories and go back and listen too to the bad audio. We were just talking about that, but do it. That's sweet. Anyway, and give us a rating, give us a review. We've gotten a lot of sweet reviews lately, which we really love. So come shout us out if you feel so inclined and be nice. And always remember, the world is scary. People suck. Hide in your closet.